They surrounded the wrong woman. But the real hero was the quiet dad nobody noticed. The streets of Manhattan don't sleep. Not at 7:43 on a Tuesday evening, when the crosswalks flood with 1,000 strangers, moving in 1,000 different directions. None of them making eye contact. All of them wrapped in the invisible armor of city life. Everyone has somewhere to be. Everyone has something to protect. And nobody wants to get involved in somebody else's story. That's the unspoken contract of New York City. You mind your business. You keep your head down. You survive. Elena Marsh had written that contract herself years ago and lived by it every single day. As the CEO of Vertex Solutions, a rising tech firm that had just crossed a $200 million valuation, Elena had spent 15 years learning how to move through this city. Like water, fast, purposeful, invisible when she needed to be, commanding when she had to be. Her green tailored suit wasn't just an outfit. It was a declaration, a signal that said, I have earned my place here. I belong in every room I walk into. Don't underestimate me. She had learned early that in a city like New York, and in a boardroom full of men twice her age, how you carried yourself was everything. Confidence wasn't arrogance, it was armor, and Elena Marsh had been wearing hers for so long it had become second nature. She was crossing 42nd Street, phone in hand, heels clicking a sharp rhythm against the pavement, mind already 3 steps ahead of her body and deep into the agenda for her 8 p.m. conference call. When they closed in, she didn't notice them immediately. That was the thing about Manhattan foot traffic. Bodies were everywhere. Movement was constant. The brain learned to filter out everything that wasn't a direct threat. By the time Elena registered what was happening, the circle had already formed. 4 of them. Young, maybe 19, maybe 22. Hooded jackets. Slow, deliberate steps. Moving with the kind of casual, unhurried confidence that only comes when a group of people know they outnumber their target and have already calculated the outcome. The first one bumped her shoulder, hard enough to make her stumble half a step. Watch it, Elena said sharply, not breaking stride. Oh, she's got a mouth on her, said the second one, stepping directly into her path. She stopped. The third positioned himself to her right. The fourth drifted to her left. The first one circled behind her. It happened in less than 12 seconds. What took longer to register and what hit Elena, somewhere in her chest like cold water, was watching the crowd around her respond, or rather watching them not respond. The river of strangers parted around the situation like water around a stone. Eyes dropped to phones. Footsteps quickened. A woman in a beige coat glanced over, met Elena's eyes for half a second, and then looked away and kept walking. Nobody stopped. Nobody slowed down. Nobody said a word. This was New York. This was Tuesday evening. This was somebody else's problem. Elena felt her heart rate spike. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Her training, sharp mind, years of navigating hostile negotiations, reading rooms, assessing risk, all of it fired at once. She calculated quickly. Running wasn't an option. Screaming might escalate things. She was surrounded on 3 sides with traffic at her back. She lifted her chin, kept her eyes level. Back up, she said, her voice quiet but iron hard. Right now, all of you. The one on her left, tall, sharp eyes beneath the hood, leaned in slightly. Relax, we just want to talk. Nice watch, said the one in the baseball cap directly in front of her, nodding toward her wrist. It was a thin silver bracelet, delicate, old, the last thing her mother had given her before she passed away. 4 years ago, Elena felt something cold move through her. Not fear exactly, but something older. Something that remembered being young and powerless and talked over and dismissed. She refused to let it show. Touch it, she said evenly, and we'll see how that conversation goes. They laughed. Not mean laughter, almost amused. Like they appreciated the show. 3 feet away, leaning against a halal food cart on the corner and waiting for his change, a man named Daniel Reyes looked up from his wallet. He was 34 years old, medium height, lean in the way that comes from hard work rather than a gym membership. He wore a faded navy flannel jacket over a gray t-shirt, and he carried a reusable grocery bag in his left hand. Eggs, whole milk, a loaf of bread, a box of Honey Nut Cheerios because that was the only cereal his daughter would eat. He had a quiet face. The kind of face that people looked at and then immediately forgot the moment they turned away. Not unattractive, just unremarkable. The kind of man who moved through the world without disrupting it. He worked double shifts at a logistics warehouse 3 nights a week, loading and routing freight containers, with a small crew of men who didn't talk much and worked hard. On his days off, he picked up his daughter Sophia from school, helped her with math homework that was already too advanced for him, cooked dinner, read to her until she fell asleep. Rinse, repeat. He had been doing this alone for 3 years, ever since Sophia's mother left. He didn't talk about it much. It simply was what it was. Sophia was 8 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with dinosaurs, and the single best thing that had ever happened to him. For her, Daniel Reyes would do anything. He had also, in his quieter moments, spent a lot of time thinking about the kind of world he was raising her in, and what it would take, small choices, daily choices, to make it slightly better. He pocketed his change, picked up his bag, then he saw the circle, saw the woman in the green suit, standing straight and still in the center of it like a tree in a storm, saw the crowd flowing around it without stopping. He felt the pull. Every person who has ever witnessed something wrong knows that pull. The tug between instinct and self-preservation. The voice that whispers, "This isn't your situation. You have a daughter waiting. You could get hurt. You can't fix everything. Just keep walking." He had listened to that voice before, years ago. In a situation not unlike this one, on a street not unlike this one, he had kept walking. And he had thought about what happened afterward for a very long time. He set his grocery bag down carefully at the base of the food cart. He walked toward the circle. Marcus. The word came out calm, unhurried, not a shout. Not a command, just a name spoken with a quiet certainty that somehow cut through the noise of 42nd as street like a knife through still water. The one in the baseball cap, the leader, the one who had been eyeing Elena's bracelet, went completely still. Turned slowly. Daniel was standing at the edge of the circle, hands loose at his sides, face relaxed, looking directly at the young man in the cap with an expression that was neither aggressive nor afraid, just present, just there. "I know your grandmother," Daniel said. His voice was conversational, easy. "Miss Loretta? Cypress Avenue, right? The yellow house with the black gate?" Nobody moved. "She makes that banana pudding every Sunday," Daniel continued, stepping forward casually and easing himself into the space beside Elena, as naturally as if he were joining a group of old friends. "Brings it to the block party every August. Best thing I've ever eaten in my life, I'm not even exaggerating." Marcus stared at him. "She talks about you," Daniel said, quieter now. "All the time. Told me you were looking at trade school. Electrical work, wasn't it? Said you were going to be somebody." He paused for just a moment. Said she believed that more than anything in the world. The silence that followed was so complete that, for a moment, even the city seemed to hold its breath. "She'd be real proud," Daniel said softly, "of what she's seeing right now." No threat, no anger, no drama, just a soft, honest sentence placed into the space between them like a hand on his shoulder. Something moved across Marcus's face. It happened fast, a flicker, there and gone. But Elena saw it clearly. Something that looked like recognition, like memory, like the face of a boy who had once been loved without condition, by a woman who smelled like vanilla and called him her baby every time he walked through her door. The circle didn't explode. It didn't turn violent. It didn't escalate. It simply dissolved. One by one, without a word exchanged, without a challenge made, the 4 young men drifted apart, back into the crowd, back into the current of the city, gone as quickly as they had appeared. Elena stood on the sidewalk for a moment and just breathed. Then she turned. The man in the flannel jacket was already walking back toward the food cart. She watched him pick up his grocery bag, check that the eggs hadn't broken, nod slightly to himself with what appeared to be genuine relief. "Hey," she called. He turned. "Are you okay?" she asked. He looked faintly surprised by the question, as if the possibility that he might not be okay hadn't occurred to him. "Yeah, you?" She exhaled slowly. "Yes, I think so." She walked toward him. "You know that guy? That Marcus?" "Never seen him before," Daniel said. She stopped. "You made it up?" "I made up the name," he said. I made up Miss Loretta and the banana pudding and the yellow house. A small pause. The rest of it I meant. Every word. Elena stared at him. How did you know that would work? He was quiet for a moment, thinking about it honestly. I didn't, he said. But I knew that every one of those guys has someone. A grandmother, a mother, an aunt, who's still praying for them, who still sees something worth saving. And I figured if I could make him remember that person for just a few seconds, the rest would take care of itself. He shrugged. Sometimes it doesn't work. Tonight it did. She was looking at him the way people look at something they don't quite have a category for. Why did you come over at all? She asked. Everyone else just walked away. He glanced down at the grocery bag in his hand. The eggs, the cereal, the bread. I have a daughter, he said simply. She's 8. And I want her to grow up in a world where when someone is in trouble in the middle of a crowd, at least one person stops. He looked up. Somebody has to be that person. Might as well be me. Elena was quiet for a long moment. The city roared and swirled around them. A cab blared its horn 3 times. Someone on a bicycle shouted. The lights of Times Square painted everything in shifting color. I run a company, she said finally. 400 employees, 3 vice presidents, a board of directors. I've given keynote speeches on leadership to rooms of 500 people. She paused. And I genuinely believe that what you just did in 60 seconds on a crosswalk taught me more about actual leadership than anything I've read in a business book in 15 years. He didn't say anything. He didn't seem to need to be told that. What's your name? She asked. Daniel Reyes. Elena Marsh. She extended her hand. He shook it once, firm, brief. The handshake of someone who meant what they said and didn't need to prove it. Can I ask what you do, Daniel? Warehouse logistics. Nights mostly. She nodded slowly. The idea was forming before she was even fully aware of it. The way the best decisions sometimes did, arriving fully assembled from somewhere she couldn't quite name. Vertex Solutions has been searching for 6 months, she said carefully, for someone to lead our new community outreach division. We want to build real mentorship, infrastructure in underserved neighborhoods across the city, programs that actually work. Not from a boardroom, from the ground up. She reached into the inner pocket of her jacket, pulled out a card. I need someone who understands people, not theoretically, not from a case study, someone who actually gets it. She held the card out. He looked at it, then at her. I have a daughter I need to be home for, he said. We'll build the schedule around that. I don't have a college degree. I didn't ask for one. I've never run a program before. You just de-escalated 4 people on a New York City crosswalk using nothing but a made-up grandmother's banana pudding, she said. I think you'll figure it out. He looked at the card for a long moment, small, white, clean, her name in raised silver letters. He took it. 6 months later, on a bright Wednesday morning in March, Daniel Reyes stood at the front of a sunlit conference room on the 14th floor of the Vertex Solutions building on 6th Avenue. 12 young people sat in a semicircle in front of him, ages 16 to 21, from the Bronx, from East New York, from neighborhoods the rest of the city talked about. Without really knowing, some of them had their arms folded, some stared at the floor. A couple looked like they were already counting the minutes until they could leave. All of them were waiting to be lectured at by another adult who didn't understand anything about their lives. Daniel set his notebook down on the table. He pulled up a chair and sat in it backwards, arms resting on the back. I'm not going to stand up here and talk at you, he said. I've been where you are. I've sat in rooms like this and tuned out everything the person in front of me was saying because I already knew they didn't get it. He paused. So I'm just going to tell you one thing, and then we're going to talk. The room was very quiet. 6 months ago, I was standing on a corner on 42nd Street holding a bag of groceries, he said. And I had a choice. The same choice everybody has about 100 times a day. Do something or keep walking. He looked around the room slowly. I stopped, and that one decision changed my life. Not because I did something heroic, because I did something human. Another pause. You already have everything you need to change. Your life and the lives of people around you. You have more than you know. You just need someone to remind you what that looks like. At the back of the room, Leaning against the doorframe with a cup of coffee in her hand, Elena Marsh watched the 12 faces in that semicircle shift, imperceptibly, barely, from closed to something just slightly more open. She was smiling. The most powerful person in any room is not always the one with the loudest voice or the biggest title. Sometimes it's the quiet one, the one carrying groceries, the one who looked up when everyone else looked away, the one who stopped. The world doesn't change in boardrooms. It changes in crosswalks, in 60-second decisions, in the choice, made over and over again by ordinary people, to do the right thing when it's hard. Be that person